Hey gamers, welcome back to the Pashcast, the only show that has speakers that go up to 12. I'm Pashford, editor-in-chief over at Gamer Syndrome, and you're listening to the Pashcast. Welcome back, everyone. New episode, new day. New day, new episode. I'm still talking about Rock Band, however, because Rock Band 4 launched on October 6th, and it's been good fun for me so far. I've been doing nothing but writing and playing and talking about it. So I hope if you're following me, you've been enjoying it. Anyone who's just joining me now, we've got a good episode ahead of you. Still talking about Rock Band. I talked about the set list yesterday and how I kind of described it as deep cuts. A little underwhelming in my opinion. There were some gems. There were some really cool songs. Overall, I think that Harmonix, ironically, have outdone themselves so many times in terms of having excellent on-disc set lists with Rock Band 1, 2, and 3, and then having a catalog of over 4,000 songs at their disposal. They're having to get creative about what decisions they make in terms of musical artists they have. They're also limited by licensing fees, etc. But nonetheless, Rock Band 4 set list, not the best, unfortunately. Still very fun, and some of the easier songs in the game are the first third of the set list really was surprisingly engaging, which was awesome for me because I'm a difficulty junkie and I need a little extra oomph to get me going. So that was good. I'm sure people who like indie rock and some more topical stuff will still dig it. And there's some artists that I was turned on to or just reminded of that I really like. So it's not a complete wash, just not entirely amazing. I wrote some thoughts down earlier, which I'll talk about now, and which you can read over at Gamer Syndrome once this Pashcast is posted. And I'm going to kind of summarize what I was saying on the article, but I will also extrapolate on the thoughts because I think they're really interesting. And with most games, I usually like to look at kind of the undertones of what the title is talking about, or maybe, I don't know, the philosophy behind the concepts. Being a music game, Rock Band 4 doesn't have a lot to really decipher. It's kind of straightforward. Though I thought I'd kind of look at maybe what caused the creation of Rock Band 4 or what made Rock Band 4 come to be. My article will be entitled, Are Gamers Really the Ones Who Created a Rock Band 4? And what I do mean by that is, through our actions in Rock Band 3, did those decide the fate of Rock Band 4? Maybe not in an ominous way, but more a matter-of-factual kind of way. I mean, Rock Band 4 is missing a lot of what many would argue are major features and staples that made Rock Band 3 amazing. I mean, we lost the pro instruments, which we knew was going to happen. The keys are also gone. Rest in peace. Even the Ion drum kit's not compatible right now, which I know is bumming out quite a few longtime drummers. Not being a drummer myself, I empathize with you only so far, but I still know those feels through other means. Sorry about that. It sucks. So there's a lot of different ways to play that aren't there anymore. There's a huge lack of customization in the game compared to Rock Band 2 and 3, which is a major bummer because I loved fleshing out my band, making new characters. The overall sense of connectedness in Rock Band 3 with the menus being different venues and your bands traveling to them. That was a nice touch. Aside from that, quite a few statistics and data and info are unavailable. There's no practice mode, which for me is just murder. And for a beat match style rhythm game is just amazing to me. And no online, perhaps, and possibly the most inflammatory exclusion for most gamers, which does seem crazy. No Battle of the Bands, no verses, no co-op whatsoever to speak of. And I thought about how weird that was, but there must have been a reason, because I know Harmonix knows their stuff. They've always made great games, and they wouldn't just dupe gamers because they're evil and malicious. I mean, I've talked to some people from Harmonix. They're nice people. And now they're independent, so they don't have anyone to answer to, like, any corporate overlords who would possibly force their hand on this. So these decisions must have been made through reason or some kind of intelligent rationale that can be explained. And a lot of the interviews that I read, videos I saw, and even people I talked to at Harmonix, like Harmonix Henry, they did say that there was going to be a shift in Rock Band 4, saying they're going to focus on a core experience. And in order to do that, they asked gamers what they wanted, and they put out a huge survey, which tens of thousands of people answered, but also culled data from Rock Band 3, the usage statistics, through online capabilities to find out what people were using Rock Band 3, what they weren't using, everything they did regularly. And so they were able to see, how Rock Band 3 was used and what people didn't care about. So with this in mind, I kind of pose the question, are we the gamers responsible for what happened in Rock Band 4? Because, I've heard some lackluster kind of responses and, some lukewarm reviews or, positive reviews, but nothing that's kind of creating this huge hype storm for Rock Band 4, which I think it still does deserve. And keeping in mind that, Harmonix, once they finished with Guitar Hero, and Activision kind of gave them the boot, they were acquired by Viacom and partnered with MTV Studios, which gave them a lot of resource that they previously didn't have and opened a lot of doors. After Rock Band 3, they became an independent studio and they wanted to be self-reliant. And I think that is key in realizing how Rock Band 4 was created, on top of looking to the players to see what they wanted most. Because as an independent studio, you have to focus on what matters most, because you don't have as much time or as much resources. These huge development studios under these huge publishers, that represent kind of this AAA game model that supposedly everyone decries, but then many go out and buy the game that they say is just ridiculous or flawed or too big for its own good on day one. So there's kind of a disconnect there, and you kind of wonder, are people, talking the talk? Are they walking the walk? Are they meaning what they say? Are they acting differently? And I think in terms of Rock Band 4, that's not the case. And I know this is hard to pin down, so I'm going to use I'm going to use a few broad strokes here. But, before WoW and the Wii and Call of Duty Modern Warfare, before those concepts in gaming came about, before it kind of in the past 10 years became way more inclusive or inviting or accessible or mainstream to game with massive finances involved, a AAA game would look like Rock Band 4. Not like, Assassin's Creed. One of the most recent ones had 1,000 people working on it. 50 writers or something. How do you even justify that? The phrase that too many, cooks in the kitchen boil the soup. And when you think about 50 writers or 1,000 people working on a game, it's how do you even manage that? It seems totally unsustainable. And a lot of studios are going under because that model is unsustainable. Going back to my previous point, Rock Band 4 is getting good reviews, but not amazing reviews, not life-breaking reviews, not reviews that I think are probably going to sway people because of stuff like no online mode, no pro instruments, no bells and whistles, basically. But Rock Band 4 was made by Harmonix, which is now an independent studio, and you have to be realistic about what they can produce, and they had to be realistic too, which is why I think they culled so much online data and did so much market research and came up with the mere conclusion that 90%, some overwhelming statistic anyways, of what people did in Rock Band 3 was not used. And all of that time and money and resource, they didn't have the luxury to waste this time. So being realistic and looking at what gamers wanted, they probably said, well, everyone uses quick play. A lot of people use quick play. Not too many people actually use the customization. The career doesn't matter as much. And we have still a great DLC platform. So let's focus on the music and let's forego most of the other jazz that people don't really use, even if they think they want it. And I think that's the result, Rock Band 4. It's the game that we wanted through action, but don't maybe think we want in concept, because Rock Band 3 seemed so much grander and had so many more options. But at the end of the day, how many did you use of those options? And even thinking about myself personally, I loved a lot of the shit in Rock Band 3. Realistically, I really did spend most of my time in quick play, just playing by myself. And that's the damn truth. And I would say I'm even an outlier in the Rock Band community, because even though I had tons of friends and had Rock Band parties all the time, and we had lots of fun, and I'm a little obsessive, and a bit of a score hunter, so I do play the game more obsessively than everyone else, and I still only played in quick play. And if I'm the one who's putting in the most time, and all those other players who are putting in the most time are doing quick play, and casual players aren't really putting in their opinion, and all this data suggests what Harmonix should develop, then Rock Band 4 kind of makes sense in its absence of features, because they kind of didn't matter. Because the music has always mattered in Rock Band and any music game. And even going back to Warriors of Rock, Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock, and Rock Band 3 right before the music crash, I remember my opinion honestly about Rock Band 3. I loved a lot of what it did. I had massive problems with it still. I thought it was flawed, and even with all of its cool features, I still thought I favored Warriors of Rock. I thought it was a cooler game. Ultimately, I played Rock Band 3 way more. Why? Because I ended up liking the engine more, and I had an amazing library. And that has what always Rock Band has done well. Had a great stable of songs that are just fun to play. And it kind of makes sense when I ask, are gamers really the ones who created Rock Band 4? I think the answer kind of is yes. And I think people are so used to games being so excessive, that a game being fun isn't good enough anymore. A game has to be a lifestyle or an addiction to be considered noteworthy or relevant, which is daunting at best or unhealthy at worst in terms of making the industry more inclusive, which is exactly what gaming needs. The last thing we need is, gigantic, huge EP measuring competition where you basically have to throw your life away to get, quote unquote, a game or to enjoy a game. And I think that's been one of the problems gaming is having growing pains with. Because if Rock Band 4 is any indication, it's a fun game. It's a great game, in fact. And writing my article and talking about it on this podcast, the Pashcast, I feel kind of bad because I have to be truthful about how much it lacks, which I think is going to resonate most with people, which is too bad because I still think it's like the quintessential party game, and I still think it's amazingly fun. But because it's not like this lifestyle or addiction or huge overblow AAA game that everyone thinks they don't want and complains about, they still disregard Rock Band 4 as being, kind of not having enough, even though Rock Band 4 is kind of everything gamers really wanted who played music games in the first place. None of this is conclusive or objective. I'm not a big fan of saying anything is truly factual. I think there's subjectivity in all angles to view, but considering everything that I've read and all the things that I've researched and the thought that I've kind of given this topic, are gamers really the ones who created Rock Band 4? And the answer might surprise you, or at least there's a truth to the answer, I think, that many probably won't consider enough. And it's perhaps maybe a dictation on where we are as an industry and maybe how we have to better ourselves, but I don't think it's going to be an instantaneous process. So anyways, those are my thoughts on Rock Band 4. I don't know if they'll be my last, but definitely very relevant thoughts that I think are worthy of reflection. And I think that's the Pashcast for today. Thanks for dropping by. I hope you really appreciate it. Even though Rock Band 4 does have an absence of a lot of features, I still think it has amazing gameplay. So if you have a chance to check out Rock Band 4, I absolutely recommend it because it's still one of those go-to games that stays in your system for a while because it's so goddamn fun. All right, guys. Well, that's been Pashford Murano. And this has been the Pashcast. Thanks for stopping by. Ciao.